Howdy y'all, welcome to a special edition of the Den of DBZ All-Star. Monty is here with me because we have been challenged. We are meant to rise to the occasion thanks to BunkmastaB. Other people have been challenged as well on the Near Mint Condition Discord. Sign up for their Patreon to join the Discord, as well as within his video featuring the top 5 most important comics. We are set to present the top 5 most important comics to each of us, those of us who have been challenged. Just a heads up, just a little bit of a disclaimer here. A good chunk of my collection is in storage, thousands of miles away, so instead of presenting the single issues that I view as most important to me, Monty agrees that it is fair to show off collected editions or books related to those issues. Isn't that right, Monty? Monty says yes. And to make up for it, at the end of the video, I will also be talking about 5 of my favorite content creators on YouTube within this culture of comics. So let's get started. So because BunkmastaB was so kind to involve us in this challenge that is not the Ice Bucket Challenge, which I have a video somewhere out there of me being involved in that. Trust me, you don't need to be scarred for life. I am including music. Obviously, none of this is done for monetization, it's just for fun. So let's kick things off with a beloved adventure into the world of Marvel Comics. We have Avengers: The Crossing Omnibus as my first most important comic. So, why is this so important? Oh yeah, just kidding. Let's get on to the real list. Sorry, just had to have a little bit of fun with y'all. So for real this time, I think Green Arrow is as good a place as any to start out. Sorry for the glare. I don't have a Bro Dart for Volume 1, so I've got it in one of those larger baggies that in-stock trades will sometimes use. This is Green Arrow the Longbow Hunter Saga Omnibus Volume 1. Green Arrow the Longbow Hunter Saga Omnibus Volume 2. Both by Mike Grell, collecting his entire run. And these are meant to represent Green Arrow issue 1 from the Kevin Smith run, because that was actually the first DC comic series that I started collecting on a long-term basis. And a lot of material from that series outside of the Kevin Smith and Brad Meltzer arcs that open the series, mainly by Judd Winnick, it's severely underrated. And prior to that, my first DC comic was Batman: The 10-Cent Adventure. Yeah, it took me until the 2000s to get started in DC, and I've kind of been a fan of Green Arrow ever since, even though I skipped a large portion of the New 52 because, let's face it, I'm sure the majority of people will say it was a step back for the character and it was just plain odd. So, love me some classic Mike Grell Ollie. I first visited this run after I realized there was material prior to the Kevin Smith run. And so that would be 5 out of my top 5. Let's move on. So next up, I'm showing off the Sonic the Hedgehog 30th Anniversary Edition hardcover, deluxe edition, specifically because my very first comic that I purchased was in 1992 from Archie Comics. It was Sonic the Hedgehog issue 0, and I collected that consistently until the summer of 1995. I'll get into what my first non-Archie Sonic related comic was. But yeah, Sonic was the birth of my love of comic books. I can, up until issue 234 of the main series, I believe, maybe even more, tell you how much I paid for the Sonic comic and where I purchased it, because my brain is interesting like that. And I gotta tell you, I was bound and determined to have everything when I was starting out. I missed out on issue 6, picked it up for $20 back in the year 2000, and I had a complete collection of all of the Archie stuff for the longest time, minus the Sonic X series. And even though people have things to say about the Ken Penders run, and some people prefer the stuff Ian Flynn put out after Penders left, and even prefer Ian's work in these IDW series, the Archie stuff holds a special place in my heart, and probably always will. Eventually it would be nice to see Penders and IDW Flynn all get along so we can get some oversized treatment for those classic stories, but I don't know, maybe it's a pipe dream. We'll see. I try to be optimistic, but if you've interacted with Penders on Twitter, it can go one of two ways, and I won't say any more than that. So this is number 4 on my top 5 most important comics. This relates to Sonic the Hedgehog issue 0 from 1992, published by Archie Comics. Let's move on to number 3. So, believe it or not, for my number 3 choice, I'm being completely serious. This is not another joke, not another Rickroll. I have Spider-Man 1990 to 1998, issue 60, taking my number 3 spot, even though it's not included in either of these Ben Reilly omnibus. I realize it's collected in the Clone Saga Omnibus Volume 2, but that's in storage. Why is that important to me when a lot of people hate the Clone Saga? Well, as I mentioned for number 4, in the summer of 1995, I was able to move away from just collecting the Sonic the Hedgehog comics. And that was due to the fact that I picked up the Spider-Man 1990-1998 series, issue 60, which falls in the middle of the Clone Saga. It's right before Peter Parker stops being Spider-Man for some reason. It's part 3 of the 4-part Trial of Peter Parker storyline, and it reveals the true identity of Kane, who at that time became a pretty integral character to the Spider-Man mythos. And I was hooked. You would think that the revelation would turn me off. No, I was hooked. And even though a month later we moved into Maximum Clonage, which is not regarded highly within the Spider-Man community, it's still more highly rated than One More Day and Sins Past, even though one of those has been retconned by Nick Spencer. But yeah, I'm not gonna fib to you. That issue is integral to my collection. Because without that, I honestly have no idea if I would have gotten into Spider-Man comics. I have no idea if I would have started collecting Marvel comics. It's a pretty important piece of my collection, to the point that I have the Spider-Man Clone Saga Epics. I have the Revelations trade paperback, which expanded upon the final original Clone Saga story. I have the Ben Reilly Saga Epics. I have the 2 Omnibuy for the Clone Saga. I obviously have the 2 Ben Reilly, and I'm gonna buy the new printings of these, because to me, that just has a lot of nostalgia to me, and believe it or not, there's some pretty excellent stories contained within. It's not as bad as people say it is, even though there are some pretty not great stories included. But I think I've said enough about my number 3. Some people might disagree, but this is just my preference. Let's move on to number 2 and number 1, because they kind of flip-flop. Alright, so for my number 2 and number 1 picks, like I said, these kind of flip-flop. It's not about the overall quality, it's about why they're important to me. And Spider-Girl is important to me because even though I have never been a teenage girl, I am a cis, white, heterosexual male. This just felt like a fantastic story. Started off with What If, Series 2, 105, and it sold well enough that was reprinted as Spider-Girl issue 0. That continued on and do an ongoing series, and the fan base can confirm that we had to fight to keep it going several times until it was relaunched after issue 100, and several mini-series and even its own event series like Last Man Standing, Last Planet Standing, or was it Last Hero Standing? The Buzz, and several other tie-in miniseries. This was the sole surviving title of the MC2 imprint at Marvel Comics. This is Complete Collection Volume 4. What If 105, which introduces us to this wonderful story and universe, is my pick specifically. But yeah, you can see the Buzz here, you can see Dark Devil, you can see a version of the Green Goblin. Who are these people? Well, you have to read to find out. It wasn't attractive to me due to the fact that it has another Spider-Man character. Mayday deals with some real-world issues in this. She has to figure out her legacy in the wake of Peter ending his career as Spider-Man and working at first to really deter her from taking up that webbed wonder role. And as you can see, her outfit has a lot in common with Ben Reilly's initial Spider-Man costume, so that may have played a role in it. Not sure, but it may have. So this, as I was saying, was ended with issue 100, relaunched as The Amazing Spider-Girl, which ended, I believe, with issue 30. It became the Spectacular Spider-Girl, and that eventually led to Spider-Girl The End, because Marvel had this brilliant idea in the wake of Amazing Spider-Man leaving the Brand New Day era and becoming the big time era under Dan Slott. Hey, let's relaunch Spider-Girl with Aranya. And that that only lasted 8 issues. Mayday has appeared from time to time since the cancellation. What I'd love to see is Tom DeFalco or someone come back and write a revival for this series, because it was a pretty positive characterization, and like I said, it dealt with a lot of real-world issues. Ron Frenz drew a lot of what's contained in the pages. There's Nova there. That is Richard Rider. Badass in any timeline. American Dream. The original Thunder Strikes. Sun there. As part of A-Next, the Avengers Next team. I could gush on this series all day, but I'm not going to. But yeah, this fluctuates back and forth as my number 2 and number 1 pick. So let's move on to the other one. Alright, so what can I say about Saga that has not been said by other people with better tech know-how and equipment already? I love this series. When this image showed up in previews, when it showed up on the posters that Diamond was distributing to local comic stores, I was working in a comic book store and had read Y the Last Man, had read Ex Machina, loved Brian K. Vaughan, had even read his short Swamp Thing run, and his Batman and Wonder Woman material was collected in a trade paperback collected edition, so just loved his style. And I fell in love with Fiona Staples' artwork from the very instant I saw this image. So I picked up a couple copies for myself and encouraged others to make sure to pick up copies as well. And nothing wrong with people being into superhero comics, but even though we eventually sold out, yeah, it was not something that really took off at the shop until issue 8 came along and we had a special discount about a month later where we could order severely discounted copies of that. We just handed them out, and the pool list, the subscription rate, increased. I have every printing of issue 1, including the image first, and I have every issue that's been published since, even the error variant of, I believe it's issue 41, and the, I think it was called a Ghost variant of one of the earlier issues. I collect this series in singles. I have, as you can see here, the compendium, but from one of my latest videos, here's Saga, chapter or issue 64. I collect the trade paperback collected editions. Here's volume 10. And I also have the OHCs. Heck, I even have the compendium in a digital format, and I have the trade paperback collected editions in a digital format thanks to Humble Bundle. I hope I'm not open to anything too explicit here. Because Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan have dirty, dirty minds in the best way possible. No nudity there. He's wearing pants. But look at this beautiful artwork. And at the end of the day, the story is about love. It's about two people who should not have been able to come together and creating a beautiful family. And I can definitely get behind that, because you gotta have love in your life. Look at that gorgeous image there. I think this was the covered issue 25. But I've gotten to meet Brian K. Vaughan. I've gotten to meet Fiona Staples. I have issue 1 signed twice over by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. And no matter the delays, no matter how painful they can be, because from the summer of 2018, when issue 54 released in July that year, until January 2021, there was no issue 55. And then issue 60 came out, and we had to wait another 7 months. 3.5 years was painful to wait, and I know it's just comics to some people, but the story is epic. Vaughan and Staples make you feel for these characters, the good and the bad. And I love this series. And that's why it fluctuates between 1 and 2. Most of the time, though, I will say it's at number 1. And this is a series I will continue collecting until the end. And I will endlessly, endlessly recommend to people. So, yeah, that's what I have for my top 5 most important comics. Forgive me for the format. Like I said, most of my stuff is in storage, so to compensate, in no particular order, so no one gets jealous, I'm going to name my top 5 content presenters on YouTube. Of course, we've got, at least related to the comic book culture, of course, we've got Near Mint Condition. I'm throwing BunkmastaB up there. I'm saying Illuminati. I'm saying the Brave and the Boys. And I'm having a lot of difficulty naming my fifth one, but I will say this. I think Curtis makes a heck of an argument with his Epic Marvel podcast. And that doesn't mean that anyone I haven't named is not spectacular. There's so many wonderful content creators out there, and let me tell you, you are the inspiration. You're the reason why I do this. I do this for fun. Don't do it for monetary gain. I just do it to share in this love of the wacky world of comics. Because you have to find ways to escape the trauma and drama of real life. And heck, comics are a good way to do it. So stay healthy, stay safe, be well, live your life as you will, and thank you to BunkmastaB for this wonderful challenge. You are awesome.